Welcome, everyone. My name is Erik Cave. I'm the director of Next Gen Ministries for the Pacific Northwest Conference. And today I get to welcome our guest, Pam Christensen. She recently did a workshop at our annual celebration on disability ministry. We're going to get to that in a moment. But first, Pam, I'd like you to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your personal and ministry background.
As Erik said, I'm Pam Christensen. I have been in ministry for about 30 years or so. The last 15 specifically, I have been working on disability and accessibility and inclusion ministries, starting in children's ministry and then moving to the broader church. It is very much a passion of mine. I love doing it. I love helping the church to see how we can reach people better, how we can include everyone in the body of Christ. And so my last position was the ability inclusion advocate at my previous church, which I thoroughly enjoyed. And that meant not just creating accessibility for people at the church, but also helping the church to understand what we're missing when we don't include these voices.
Oh, good. Well, thank you for sharing that. This is a really important topic, and we're really glad to have you come to our annual celebration. Your workshop was called Disability Ministry 101. So tell us a bit about what that workshop was about.
So it was, the other part of that title was, where do we even start? And often I find churches are overwhelmed at the idea of starting somewhere. Where do we start? Disability is a huge umbrella. It covers the entire lifespan. Where do we even start? And so I wanted to give churches just an opportunity to understand where they need to start at. It was very broad. I wasn't focusing on children's ministry or youth or adults. It was covering everything broadly. But there's some basics that apply to everyone. And where we start is with people. We start with the people that are in front of us. And I encourage them to ask their congregations, what do you need? Where do you see a need? Where might we be doing something that's problematic? How can we do things in a way that's more accessible? And then to listen to those responses and take those into consideration. Now, somebody may say they want an elevator and that may not be an option, but there can be creative ways to make spaces accessible and listen to the people who are in front of you. And what I have found is when you start creating accessible spaces, people come because unfortunately it's just not that common. And when you create accessible spaces, you create space for everyone, and people will come. You don't have to have a specific program or a specific ministry, but keeping an eye on that and what your people say and listening to what your people say is the biggest first steps.
Okay, so you clearly have a strong passion for disability and accessibility ministry. What drives that? Where does that come from within you?
A lot of that is background. It's my family, it's myself, it's parents, it's loved ones with disabilities, and just seeing how we as a church are a bit behind the ball. An awful lot of the Americans with Disabilities Act does not apply to churches. And so that act is 30 years old. And we're about 30 years behind all public sector, businesses, public sector. Because it doesn't apply to us. And so we often are missing those things that aren't necessarily as difficult as we think and don't cost as much as we think. The other piece is that we're missing those voices, and we are all called and gifted by God. And so we cut ourselves off from the gifts that our brothers and sisters with disabilities have, that we are not allowing them to share if we only minister to people with disabilities and not with people with disabilities.
Well, I like that byline for the title of your workshop. Where do we even start? Because I know ministry leaders and churches this can feel really overwhelming.
Yeah.
And so what would you say, what are one or two things a church could do to kind of begin, to start, to take the first step towards disability ministry?
Yeah. They do some very simple things. Large print bulletins are not that hard to create. You can buy sound reducing earmuffs for children and adults that are available out there. You can even buy the little disposable earplugs for adults because oftentimes sensory stuff is too much.
Yeah.
Keep your disabled parking spots up to date and in good working fashion, and enforce them if you need to. And the Life Covenant in Helena, Montana even has a couple of parking spots that are listed as special needs spots.
Oh, wow.
They have disabled parking and special needs spots. Even that can make a difference in, with parents who have a child with disabilities that is probably not a physical disability, but just getting across the parking lot and in the door can be tough for them. Just recognizing that might be helpful to them. Look for the little things. You don't have to do the big, huge things right away. Look for the little things that make a difference.
Well, Pam, I appreciate you being here today. The workshop that you did for our annual celebration was excellent. Appreciate that. And I'm curious, like, what support can you or are you willing to offer our churches or ministry leaders if they are looking for that? And if so, like, how would they get a hold of you to engage with you in this way?
I'm happy to consult with churches. Kind of depends on when your location is, but I even go to Montana regularly. I can certainly get to Oregon, and I live in Washington. But I'm happy to consult with churches, either virtually or in person. The best way to reach me is by email, and we'd be happy to set something up. But I always want to encourage churches to start where you're at and keep building, because we're missing out.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll include your email contact right below this video in the blog post. And I do encourage people to reach out to you. Maybe just have a conversation or to see what other ways you might be able to offer some support to them. Pam, it has been fantastic having you today. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your passion with us. Thank you for your passion and for being with me today. Thank you.
Thank you.